A corroded lump of bronze pulled from a shipwreck rewrote the history of technology. This is the story of the Antikythera Mechanism, an ancient Greek device considered the world's first analog computer. By the end of this exploration, you will understand how a 2,000-year-old artifact could predict cosmic events with a precision that vanished from history for over a millennium. How did ancient craftsmen encode the motions of the heavens into a maze of tiny bronze gears? And why was such genius seemingly forgotten for 1,000 years? What does this one extraordinary discovery reveal about the true capabilities of the ancient world? That lump of bronze was pulled from the Mediterranean depths amid a treasure hunter's dream. In the year 1900, sponge divers led by Captain Dimitrios Kondos were blown off course by a summer storm near the tiny island of Antikythera. Seeking shelter, they anchored in a cove, and when the seas calmed, one of the men dove to scout for sponges. What he saw on the seafloor, over 150 feet below, was not a natural reef but the ghostly outline of a shipwreck, its timbers long gone, with marble and bronze statues spilling from the sediment. It was an ancient Roman cargo vessel, lost around 60 or 70 years before the Common Era, carrying a fortune in Greek art back to Italy. The salvage operation that followed was perilous, conducted with the crude diving suits of the era. Men worked in the dark, cold depths, risking their health to bring up breathtaking sculptures, delicate glassware, and piles of corroded coins. Among these more obvious treasures, a nondescript, crumbling piece of bronze and wood, about the size of a large book, was also carefully packed away. It was so fragile it seemed to be coming apart in layers like a geological specimen. When everything arrived at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, the statues took center stage. The corroded lump was catalogued, deemed perhaps an astrolabe or a navigational instrument of some kind, and placed in storage. For decades, it sat quietly in a case, labeled simply as an astronomical device, a curious footnote to a much grander find. No one could have guessed that this unassuming fragment, overshadowed by marble gods and bronze warriors, held a secret more revolutionary than all the statues combined. The world simply did not yet possess the tools or the imagination to see what it truly was. It was not until the middle of the 20th century that the right mind finally looked at the fragments with the right kind of curiosity. A British science historian and physicist named Derek J. de Solla Price was visiting the Athens Museum in the 1950s, and the peculiar artifact caught his eye. To Price, the layered corrosion and faint glimpses of gear teeth did not suggest a simple astrolabe. They whispered of something far more ambitious. He secured permission for a more detailed study, and with the help of early gamma-ray and X-ray imaging, the ghostly internal structure of the mechanism began to emerge from the stone-like corrosion. For the first time, the world could see evidence of a complex, interlocking system of at least 30 precise bronze gears, all housed within a wooden frame no larger than a shoebox. This was not a single tool, but a miniature machine. In 1959, Price published his explosive findings in Scientific American, an article titled An Ancient Greek Computer. He argued that the device was a calendrical calculator designed to model the motions of the sun and moon and predict celestial events like eclipses. The term computer was startling, a deliberate provocation to an academic world that still largely viewed ancient technology through a lens of simplicity. The reaction was exactly what one might expect, a mixture of awe and profound skepticism. How could the ancient Greeks, known for their philosophy and sculpture, possess the engineering knowledge to create such a sophisticated geared mechanism? The very idea seemed to threaten the established timeline of human technological progress. Some scholars suggested it must be a much later object, perhaps from the Renaissance, that had somehow fallen into the ancient wreck. Others quietly dismissed Price's interpretation as overreaching, the work of an imaginative mind seeing patterns in corrosion. Yet the evidence was now on film. The shadowy gears were undeniable. Price had thrown open a door, but the room beyond remained shrouded in shadow. The full meaning of those gears and the inscriptions that covered the device's plates would require a new century and a new kind of vision to finally decipher. The true nature of the machine remained locked inside its own corrosion until the dawn of a new millennium. Decades after Price's initial revelation, a powerful international collaboration formed, bringing together historians, astronomers, and cutting-edge engineers. This was the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, and its mission was to see the unseen. They employed technologies that sounded like science fiction, like microfocus X-ray computed tomography, a process similar to a medical CT scan, but with a beam so fine it could map the internal structure of the corroded bronze in astonishing, three-dimensional detail. Another technique, polynomial texture mapping, used varying light angles to photograph the surface, revealing inscriptions worn so smooth they were invisible to the naked eye. For the first time, researchers could peer inside the crust without ever touching the fragile original. They were not just looking at the artifact, they were digitally dissecting it, layer by microscopic layer. What emerged from the data was nothing short of a revelation. The ghostly images from the 1950s were now replaced by crisp, rotatable three-dimensional models. Every gear tooth, every pin, every millimeter-thick bearing came into sharp focus. The team could count the teeth on gears that had not turned in 2 millennia, and they could trace the precise paths of the gear trains, the tiny mechanical circuits that carried motion and meaning through the machine. Even more astounding, the advanced imaging illuminated thousands of characters of Greek text, a technical manual etched onto the plates and covers of the device itself. This was not random decoration, it was the builder's own guide, explaining what the machine did and how to use it. The inscriptions named celestial bodies, described planetary motions, and provided detailed instructions for predicting eclipses and tracking the cycles of athletic games like the ancient Olympics. The virtual reconstruction confirmed and vastly expanded upon Price's vision. They could now see it was not just a simple sun and moon calculator, but a sophisticated orrery, a model of the known cosmos. It likely had dials on its front and back that showed the positions of the sun, moon, and probably the 5 known planets against the background of the zodiac. Another dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games. This was a single device that unified time, astronomy, and culture into a portable bronze universe. The engineering precision was breathtaking. The gears were not crude approximations, they were carefully calculated. One critical gear, for instance, had 223 teeth, a number directly linked to the Saros cycle, a period after which eclipses repeat. To model the moon's slightly irregular orbit, a clever pin and slot mechanism was used, a brilliant analog solution that introduced a subtle wobble, or anomaly, into the moon's pointer. This meant the device did not just show an average moon, it showed the moon as it actually appeared to speed up and slow down in the sky, a subtlety known to Greek astronomers but thought impossible to mechanize. The craftsmanship was on par with that of an 18th-century Swiss clockmaker, yet it was created over 2,000 years ago. The high-tech scans had done more than confirm a theory. They had resurrected a lost masterpiece of engineering, revealing a level of technical sophistication that forced a complete rethinking of the ancient technological landscape. The question was no longer if the Greeks could build such a thing, but how many minds across how many generations were involved in the knowledge that made it possible. The front face of the mechanism was its masterpiece, a dense and beautiful convergence of time, space, and human tradition. The largest dial, a complex clockwork of concentric rings, served not merely as a calendar but as a dynamic map of the heavens and a schedule for society itself. On its outermost ring, markers ticked off the 365 days of the Egyptian civil calendar, a simple and reliable system favored by astronomers for its consistency. Just inside this, a second ring displayed the 12 constellations of the zodiac, the ancient belt of the sky through which the sun, moon, and planets appeared to travel. At the heart of this cosmic clockface were two exquisite pointers. One, likely a golden orb, traced the sun's annual journey through the zodiac. The other, a silver sphere, mirrored the moon's faster monthly cycle. By simply turning the hand crank on the side of the box, an ancient user could advance time forward or backward, watching these celestial bodies glide across the constellations with a quiet, mechanical grace. It was a portable planetarium, predicting the sun's position for any given date and showing the moon's phase on a stunning, detailed sphere. But the designers wove more than just astronomy into this machine. Nestled within this main dial was a smaller, subsidiary circle, a dedicated tracker for the great Panhellenic Games. This tiny dial cycled through a 4-year period, pointing to inscriptions for the Olympics at Olympia, the Pythian Games at Delphi, the Nemean Games, and the Isthmian Games. With one glance, a scholar or priest could see that in a certain month, when the sun was in the constellation of Leo, it was not only a time for harvest but also the season of the Nemean festival. This brilliant integration transformed the device from a purely scientific instrument into a cultural compass. It synchronized human endeavor with the cosmic order, linking the timing of sacred athletic contests, religious ceremonies, and civic events directly to the rhythms of the solar system. The front dial did not just tell time, it told you what time meant. Yet the true genius of the mechanism was not just in showing the moon's position, but in capturing its very character. The moon does not circle Earth in a perfect, steady march. It speeds up and slows down in a subtle, rhythmic dance, a wobble in its path known to astronomers as the lunar anomaly. To simply show an average moon would have been a remarkable feat for the ancient world, but the creators of this device were not satisfied with averages. They wanted truth in motion. Their solution was a masterpiece of miniature engineering, a gear within a gear that breathed life into bronze. One of the central gears in the machine did not have its pointer fixed directly to its center. Instead, a small pin on this gear engaged with a curved slot on a second, smaller gear that carried the moon's pointer. As the main gear turned, the pin would slide back and forth within that slot. This ingenious pin and slot mechanism meant the smaller gear, and thus the moon's indicator would periodically speed up and slow down relative to the main drive. It was a physical equation, a mechanical algorithm that perfectly mimicked the moon's observed irregularity. Think of a child on a carousel horse that is not fixed, but slides forward and back on its pole as the ride turns. From a distance, the horse still makes a full circle, but your eye catches that little extra lunge forward and gentle pull backward within each revolution. That is precisely what this tiny assembly did for the moon on the dial. It gave the machine a soul, a hint of the authentic, unpredictable cosmos inside a clockwork box. This single component reveals a philosophical ambition that is staggering. It means the builders understood that the heavens did not operate on perfect Platonic circles alone. They had observed, measured, and accepted a celestial irregularity, and then they had invented a way to mechanize it. This mathematical modeling of a non-uniform motion demonstrates a conceptual leap that would not be formally understood again in the West until Johannes Kepler described planetary ellipses in the 17th century. The Antikythera mechanism did not just predict where the moon would be, it showed how the moon would feel in the sky, with a subtlety and precision that vanished from human craftsmanship for over 1,000 years. In that one small set of interlocking bronze teeth and a sliding pin, we see a different ancient world, one capable of a kind of mechanical philosophy that bridges observation, mathematics, and art in a way we had never dreamed possible. While the front face modeled the cosmos in motion, the back of the device was where prophecy lived. Here, the designers placed two large spiral dials, intricate and beautiful, dedicated to the grandest and most awe-inspiring cycles of the sky. These were not simple circles but spirals, allowing for a far greater scale of information within the same compact space. The upper spiral tracked the Metonic cycle, a period of approximately 19 solar years, after which the phases of the moon repeat on the same calendar dates. This 19-year rhythm was crucial for keeping lunar calendars in sync with the solar year, and its inclusion speaks to the mechanism's role in civic and religious planning. But the true showpiece was the lower spiral, the Saros dial. This was the device's eclipse predictor, and its operation reveals a breathtaking synthesis of knowledge across cultures and centuries. The Saros cycle is a period of about 18 years and 11 days, a pattern recognized by Babylonian astronomers centuries before the mechanism was built. After one Saros, the Sun, Moon, and Earth return to nearly the same relative geometry, and a similar eclipse will occur. The ancient Greeks knew of this Babylonian discovery, and the mechanism's builders encoded it into bronze. Around the spiral, tiny inscriptions in the Greek script served as a celestial forecast. They did not just predict that an eclipse would happen, they suggested how it might appear using terms like darkening or reddish, likely referring to lunar eclipses. Some inscriptions even noted the hour of the day or night the event was expected. To use it, you would turn the crank until a specific glyph on the Saros dial aligned with the current date on another scale, and the pointer would then indicate the eclipse predictions for the coming decades. But the genius did not stop at one cycle. Beside the Saros spiral sat a smaller, subsidiary dial called the Exeligmos. This triple spiral acted as a mechanical carry function, like the odometer on a car rolling over from 99 to 100. One full turn of the Saros dial pointer represented one 18-year eclipse cycle. The Exeligmos dial tracked these turns, counting them in groups of 3. Since 3 Saros cycles equal one Exeligmos cycle of about 54 years, this smaller dial effectively extended the machine's predictive power over a human lifetime, correcting for tiny cumulative errors to keep the forecasts accurate for generations. Think of it as the device's own long-term memory. This integration of Babylonian numerical astronomy with Greek mechanical artistry is perhaps its most profound legacy. The builders took raw data, painstakingly observed and recorded by temple astronomers in Mesopotamia, and transformed it into a dynamic, interactive simulation. They turned centuries of celestial observation into a turn of a handle. It demonstrates a world where knowledge flowed freely across empires, where the precision of the East met the mechanical ambition of the West to create something never seen before. The back of the Antikythera mechanism was an oracle of bronze and gear teeth, offering not vague omens but calculated, testable predictions of the sky's most dramatic events. It replaced superstition with simulation, a quiet revolution housed in a wooden box. But the ambition of the mechanism's creator reached far beyond our moon and sun. The true masterpiece, now lost to the sea, may have been a complete model of the ancient solar system. Inscriptions on the surviving fragments mention the 5 wandering stars known to the Greeks: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. This is a crucial clue. It suggests the original device did not just track 2 celestial bodies, but all 7 that moved against the fixed stars, creating a miniature, working cosmos in a box. Reconstructing these lost planetary displays has become one of the greatest puzzles in the history of science, and the solutions proposed by modern researchers reveal a mind of staggering ingenuity. To understand the challenge, you must first understand what the ancient Greeks saw in the sky. the planets do not march steadily eastward like the Sun. They periodically slow down, stop, and loop backward in the sky for a few weeks before resuming their forward journey. This apparent reversal is called retrograde motion. For an Earth-centered universe, this was a profound mystery. How could the gods' perfect, eternal spheres produce such erratic behavior? The most elegant solution before the mechanism was built came from the astronomer Apollonius of Perga, who proposed a system of epicycles. In this model, a planet did not travel on a simple circle around Earth. Instead, it traveled on a smaller circle, called an epicycle, whose center itself traveled on a larger circle around Earth. Picture a spinning lasso. Your hand moving in a big circle is the center of the epicycle, while the knot at the end of the lasso's loop traces a smaller, dizzying circle of its own. From the perspective of the person holding the rope, the knot seems to loop forward, then backward, then forward again. This epicyclic model mathematically explained the planet's strange dance. The genius of the mechanism's designer was to translate this abstract mathematical concept into physical bronze. To simulate a planet's epicyclic motion, they would have needed a breathtakingly complex assembly of gears within gears. Modern reconstructions, like the landmark model by Michael Wright, propose a system of nested coaxial tubes, each carrying a different gear train, allowing multiple pointers to rotate independently on the same central axis. One set of gears would drive the center of the epicycle around the main dial, representing the planet's average long journey through the zodiac. Another, interlocked gear train, powered through a carefully calculated ratio, would simultaneously drive the tiny back and forth wobble of the planet's pointer itself, creating the visual effect of the retrograde loop on the front display. Getting the gear ratios correct for all 5 planets, each with its own unique period of revolution and retrograde cycle, would have required an immense body of precise astronomical data and a master clockmaker's skill. The surviving fragment, known as Fragment D, contains a mysterious, flat gear with an off-center pillar, which scholars now believe was part of this very system, a physical embodiment of an epicycle. This single, corroded piece of metal is a ghost of a lost theory. It implies the maker did not just build a calculator, but engineered a philosophical argument. The device was a working demonstration of the geocentric cosmos, a physical proof that the complex motions of the heavens could be rationalized, calculated, and predicted through mechanical harmony. In turning the handle, a user was not just seeing a prediction, they were witnessing the very order of the universe made manifest through human intellect and craft. The loss of these planetary gears is perhaps our greatest historical tragedy in this story, for their recovery would have given us the clearest window into the pinnacle of ancient Greek mechanical thought, a complete, ticking model of their entire known universe, spinning silently in the dark for over 2,000 years. These intricate gear trains and dials were not meant to be mysterious. They came with instructions, etched across every available surface of the bronze plates, in letters sometimes smaller than a millimeter high, is a comprehensive guide written in ancient Greek. This text is not poetry or myth, it is a technical manual, a detailed label for a complex machine. It names the parts, explains the outputs, and teaches the user how to interpret the moving pointers. The inscriptions transform the device from an opaque artifact into a familiar tool, one that spoke directly to its operator. They reveal the maker's intent to communicate, not just to calculate. The text is organized with careful clarity. Around the main dials, you find the names of the months spelled out in a local Corinthian calendar and the symbols for the 12 signs of the zodiac. On the back, the spiral dials are annotated with tiny glyphs and words that decode their predictions. Most strikingly, the Eclipse inscriptions are not merely dry notations. They include descriptive terms like helosis, meaning darkening, and eruthros, meaning reddish. These likely referred to the appearance and perhaps the perceived omen of a lunar eclipse. Some predictions even include an index letter, possibly a system for color-coding the entries to indicate the nature or significance of the event. This suggests the machine served a priestly or civic function, providing not just the when of an eclipse, but a suggested what it might mean for those who interpreted celestial signs. Beyond predictions of dramatic celestial events, the inscriptions also served a profoundly practical, earthly purpose. Scattered throughout the text are references to a parapegma. This was a traditional Greek star calendar, a list that connected the annual rising and setting of specific stars or constellations with expected changes in weather, seasonal shifts, and agricultural duties. A parapegma entry might state that when the star Arcturus rises at sunset, it is time to expect storms at sea, or that the setting of the Pleiades signals the start of the autumn sowing season. By incorporating this data, the mechanism's creator fused high astronomy with daily survival. With a turn of the crank, a farmer or a ship's captain could align the solar pointer with a zodiac sign and read, right on the case, the traditional wisdom attached to that moment in the year. The machine thus became an almanac in motion, linking the immutable clockwork of the cosmos to the rhythms of wind, rain, and harvest. It was a bridge between the abstract beauty of planetary motion and the muddy reality of planting crops or sailing the Mediterranean. This combination of eclipse prophecy and weather guidance shows the device was not a toy for philosophers alone. It was designed for use, a tool that integrated every layer of ancient understanding about a world governed by the sky, serving both the temple and the marketplace with a single turn of a bronze handle. Yet the machine itself offers the best clues to its own origin. The language etched onto its bronze plates points not to a generic workshop, but to a specific corner of the ancient Greek world. The calendar used for its monthly inscriptions is not the Athenian calendar familiar from history books, but one from Corinth and its colonies. This detail is a crucial geographical fingerprint. One of the most prominent Corinthian colonies in the ancient Mediterranean was the island of Rhodes, a renowned center of astronomy and engineering in the Hellenistic age. Here, the evidence converges with historical records. Rhodes was home to the brilliant philosopher and scientist Posidonius, a man whose work deeply studied the tides, the stars, and the very mechanics of the cosmos. He was known to have constructed instruments to demonstrate celestial phenomena. While we have no direct proof Posidonius built this specific device, the intellectual environment he fostered on Rhodes fits the mechanism's sophistication perfectly. It was a place where theoretical knowledge met skilled metalwork, a necessary partnership for such an intricate creation. But there is an even more tantalizing, older possibility that whispers from history. A century before this ship sailed, the legendary Archimedes of Syracuse was famed across the Mediterranean not just for his mathematics, but for his wondrous celestial devices. Ancient texts describe a sphere he built that modeled the motions of the sun, moon, and planets, a device so exquisite it was carried to Rome as a prize of war after his passing. Cicero wrote of this orrery, noting that it captured the planetary motions with such accuracy, it was as if the heavens themselves were turning within it. The Antikythera mechanism is precisely the kind of portable, geared descendant such a masterpiece might inspire. Could it be the realization of a design principle pioneered by Archimedes, later refined and miniaturized by craftsmen in a center like Rhodes? Whether from the school of Posidonius or inspired by the legacy of Archimedes, the mechanism is a product of the extraordinary Hellenistic period. This was an age of explosive cross-pollination, following the conquests of Alexander the Great, where Greek ideas mingled with Egyptian, Babylonian, and Persian knowledge in great library cities like Alexandria. It was a time when mathematicians like Hipparchus, who likely worked on Rhodes, were revolutionizing astronomy with their models of celestial motion, and when artisans achieved levels of metalworking precision that would not be seen again for centuries. In this environment, the creation of a device like the Antikythera mechanism becomes not an impossible anomaly but a conceivable peak. It forces us to ask a haunting question. If this one device survived by a freak accident of preservation, how many other marvels of similar or greater complexity were created, used, admired, and ultimately lost? The mechanism is not a solitary miracle, but a single surviving fragment of a lost world of ancient high technology, a glimpse of a path of mechanical sophistication that history, until now, forgot we ever walked. The true marvel of this device lies not just in its conception, but in its tangible, physical reality. To hold the Antikythera mechanism in your hands, you would have felt the cool weight of bronze, the smooth grain of fine wood, and the delicate resistance of dozens of perfectly meshing gears turning at your command. Constructing such an object was an act of supreme artistry, a convergence of multiple high crafts that had each been perfected over generations. Every component, from the largest dial to the tiniest inscribed letter, was a testament to a forgotten industrial art form. The primary material was bronze, an alloy of copper and tin prized for its strength, corrosion resistance, and ability to be cast and worked with precision. Artisans began with flat sheets of this metal, painstakingly hammered to a uniform thickness, likely no more than a couple of millimeters. Onto these sheets, they would have laid out the complex patterns for the gears, carefully scribing circles and marking the positions for dozens, sometimes hundreds, of individual teeth. Cutting these gears free was a task demanding a steady hand and exquisite tools. They would have used small, hardened bronze saws and files, working under magnification provided by simple lenses or bowls of water. Each tooth had to be shaped and angled correctly to ensure smooth engagement with its neighbor, a process of constant testing and refinement. The complexity is staggering when you consider some of the prime numbers involved. One critical gear has 223 teeth, a number directly tied to eclipse cycles. Cutting 223 identical, functional teeth into a bronze disc the size of a modern coin by hand represents a level of patience and skill that borders on the devotional. These were not crude approximations, they were mathematical expressions made solid. Once cut, the gears were mounted on carefully made axles or arbors of bronze or perhaps even iron. These axles were fitted into a wooden frame, a skeleton that has long since decayed in the seawater, leaving only the telltale stains and impressions in the corrosion on the bronze plates. This frame was the unsung hero of the mechanism, a precisely carved structure that held everything in perfect alignment. The gears had to be assembled in a specific, layered order within this confined space, a three-dimensional puzzle where every piece had to fit with microscopic tolerance. A misalignment of even half a millimeter would cause the gears to bind, jamming the entire cosmic simulation. The final touch was the text, the user's guide, etched across the surfaces. Using a sharp, needle-like graver, a scribe engraved thousands of Greek characters, some less than a millimeter high, directly onto the bronze. This was done after assembly, meaning the artisan was working around and between the raised fittings and gears, a task requiring unimaginable control. All of this points to a specialized workshop, a kind of ancient tech hub where astronomers, mathematicians, and master metalworkers collaborated. This was not a one-off experiment by a lone genius in a garage. It was a product of an established tradition, suggesting the existence of other instruments, perhaps simpler or even more complex, that have been lost to time. The Antikythera mechanism stands as a relic of a world that could achieve precision engineering on a microscopic scale, crafting not just art, but working knowledge from bronze and wood. This level of craftsmanship existed in a world of simpler machines. To understand just HOW Chinese letter the Antikythera mechanism truly was we must place it beside the technological landscape of its own time and the long centuries that followed. In the same era, the most celebrated timekeeping devices were water clocks or clepsydry. These were elegant in principle, using the steady drip of water to measure intervals, but they were essentially fluid-filled bowls with a simple float. They could mark the passage of hours in a day, but they could not model the cosmos. For astronomy, the most advanced portable tool was the planispheric astrolabe, a beautiful device of engraved plates and a rotating retere used for solving problems of celestial position. Yet an astrolabe was a static calculator, a reference tool you manually aligned. It contained no moving parts, no gear trains, no dynamic simulation. The Antikythera mechanism was in an entirely different category. It was not a tool for measurement, but a machine for demonstration. It automated complex celestial calculations that would have taken a scholar with an astrolabe hours of work, delivering the answer with a simple turn of a crank. The true shock comes not from comparing it to its contemporaries, but from looking forward. After this device was lost beneath the waves, the intricate knowledge of precision gearing it represented appears to vanish from the historical record for an astonishing span of time. The next known geared astronomical clocks emerge in medieval Europe in the great cathedral towers of the 14th century. These, like the magnificent clock built by Giovanni da Dondi in the 1360s, were monumental achievements. Da Dondi's astrarium was a seven-faced marvel showing the planets, a masterpiece of its age, yet it was created over 1,500 years after the Antikythera mechanism. For well over a millennium, nothing of comparable mechanical complexity for calculating the heavens is known to have been built anywhere on Earth. This gap is not merely a curiosity, it is a profound historical mystery. It means that the engineering principles so brilliantly employed in that Greek workshop, differential gearing, epicyclic gear trains, precision calibration, had to be painstakingly rediscovered more than 1,000 years later. The mechanism stands as a solitary beacon, a spark of technical possibility that flickered brightly in the Hellenistic age and then was seemingly extinguished. Its existence forces us to reconsider the narrative of linear progress. It suggests that peaks of sophisticated technology can rise, be lost, and leave barely a trace, waiting for the right conditions of knowledge, craft, and curiosity to coalesce once more. The silent centuries between this ancient computer and its medieval successors hold a haunting question. How many other sparks like this one glowed briefly in the darkness, only to fade without a single surviving fragment to tell their tale? Who was this cosmic calculator truly for, and what did it do in their hands? The device was undoubtedly a treasure, requiring immense resources and skill to create, placing it within reach of only the wealthy, a royal court, or a major temple. Yet its purpose was far greater than a noble's conversation piece. It served as a dynamic classroom. For a philosopher or a teacher, turning the crank would bring the abstract theories of Hipparchus or Apollonius to life. Students could witness the moon's anomaly in motion, see the Saros cycle unfold, and grasp the geometric dance of epicycles not as a dry diagram, but as a tangible, turning reality. It transformed complex astronomy from a subject of pure thought into an interactive experience, making the mechanics of the heavens literally graspable. For the ancient astrologer, the mechanism offered unparalleled precision. Casting a meaningful horoscope required knowing the exact positions of the planets at the moment of a birth or an event. Before this, such calculations were laborious, involving scrolls of astronomical tables and lengthy manual computation. With the Antikythera mechanism, an astrologer could dial the crank back to a client's birth date and read the positions of the sun, moon, and likely the planets directly from the dials. This was not superstition, but applied science, using the highest technical tool of the age to derive the celestial snapshot that formed the basis of their art. It provided a concrete foundation for their interpretations, merging cosmic observation with human destiny. On a profoundly practical level, the device was a master calendar and an agricultural guide. Its parapegma inscriptions tied the solar year to seasonal expectations, telling a farmer when to sow or a ship captain when to expect fair winds. Its tracking of the metonic cycle kept lunar and solar calendars aligned, which was essential for scheduling the countless religious festivals that structured Greek civic life. Knowing the precise date of the next Olympic Games or the festival of Dionysus was a matter of cultural necessity, and this machine could provide that information years in advance. But perhaps its deepest purpose was symbolic. It embodied the core Greek philosophical drive to find cosmos' order, harmony, and beauty within the apparent chaos of the natural world. Here was a machine that took the bewildering, irregular motions of the sky and rendered them predictable, turning them with a steady, rational click of gears. It was a physical manifesto proclaiming that the universe operated by understandable mathematical rules, and that human reason could not only discover those rules but build a model of them. In this one object, we see the pinnacle of Hellenistic thought, a fusion of astronomy, engineering, mathematics, and artistry, all dedicated to the grand project of comprehending humanity's place in a rational, if magnificent, cosmic system. The mechanism did not travel alone. Its final voyage was aboard a floating treasury of the ancient world's finest luxuries. When sponge divers first brushed the silt from that Mediterranean seafloor, their lanterns illuminated a scene of breathtaking opulence frozen in time. Scattered among the broken amphorae were life-sized bronze statues, their surfaces still gleaming under a patina of marine growth. A powerful, youthful athlete stood frozen mid-throw, the epheb of Antikythera, his form a masterpiece of classical balance. Nearby, the serene face of a philosopher emerged from the sediment, a marble testament to Greek intellectual ideals. The wreck held delicate glass bowls from Syria, their rainbow hues miraculously preserved, along with gold jewelry, silver coins, and fine pottery. This was no ordinary trading ship. It was a specialized carrier of the highest-end goods, a floating gallery transporting the artistic and cultural wealth of the Hellenistic East to the burgeoning capital of the West, Rome. In the 1st century before the Common Era, conquering Roman generals and newly wealthy elites developed an insatiable appetite for Greek art and sophistication. They filled their villas with imported sculptures, hired Greek tutors, and adorned their lives with the symbols of a culture they both conquered and admired. This ship was a direct response to that demand, a merchant's vessel packed with the most desirable commodities of the age. Its route likely traced a well-worn path from the wealthy Greek islands or the coast of Asia Minor, heading across the Aegean toward Italy. The presence of the Antikythera mechanism within this cargo is profoundly revealing. It was not stashed away as a sailor's personal belonging. It was packed alongside bronze masterpieces and marble gods, treated with the same care as the other precious objects. This tells us the device itself was considered a luxury item, a high-status object of immense value. It was a piece of intellectual technology, as coveted as any statue by Praxiteles. A wealthy Roman patron, perhaps a senator or a scholarly aristocrat, had likely commissioned or purchased this marvel to adorn a private library or to demonstrate their sophistication. It was a tangible symbol of paideia, the Greek ideal of cultivated learning that the Roman elite so eagerly embraced. The mechanism was more than a calculator. It was a trophy of knowledge, a physical bridge between Greek scientific genius and Roman imperial power. Its journey represents a crucial moment of cultural transfer, where not just art but the very tools of advanced understanding were being shipped as prized possessions to a new world order. The storm that drove the ship against the cliffs of Antikythera did more than sink a vessel. It suspended that transfer in mid-passage, sending a capsule of ancient luxury and intellect to the seabed for 2,000 years. Among the sunken treasure, the most valuable item was not made of gold or marble, but of geared bronze and inscribed wisdom, waiting silently in the dark for its meaning to be recovered. Yet this single surviving artifact poses a question more haunting than how it worked. Why did such brilliance disappear? For over 1,000 years, no device of comparable mechanical complexity for modeling the heavens appears in any record. The silence that follows its creation is a historical puzzle, and the answers point to a perfect storm of cultural and practical shifts. The Hellenistic world that birthed the mechanism was a unique ecosystem of innovation. Great centers like Alexandria, Rhodes, and Pergamum thrived on royal patronage, where philosophers, astronomers, and craftsmen collaborated in an atmosphere of intense intellectual cross-pollination. But this golden age was fragile. As the Roman Republic expanded, it absorbed these centers not as partners in discovery, but as provinces to be administered. Roman engineering was monumental and profoundly practical, focused on aqueducts, roads, and siege engines technologies that served the state and the military. There was less cultural appetite for funding the abstract, gear-driven cosmic models that had fascinated Greek thinkers. The Roman elite admired Greek learning as a decorative accomplishment, but they rarely pursued its mechanical frontiers with the same deep, investigative zeal. This shift in priorities meant the specialized workshops capable of such miniature precision likely lost their patronage and gradually their art. Knowledge is also physically vulnerable. The Great Library of Alexandria, the symbolic heart of the ancient world's collected wisdom, suffered repeated damage over centuries through conflicts and fires. While its complete destruction is a complex historical event, the broader pattern is clear. Periods of war and social upheaval are devastating to delicate traditions of craftsmanship and the scrolls that contain their theoretical foundations. A workshop plundered, a master artisan conscripted, a set of technical diagrams lost to flame. Any of these small tragedies could break a chain of knowledge that took generations to forge. Furthermore, the craftsmanship itself may have been a closely guarded secret. In a world where such a device conferred immense prestige and perhaps even political or religious authority, the methods for creating it might have been held within a small guild of artisans, passed orally from master to apprentice. This kind of knowledge is incredibly robust while the tradition lives, but it evaporates without a trace if that line is broken. A single generation of disruption could erase techniques refined over centuries, leaving behind only the beautiful, inscrutable objects themselves, like messages in a code no one could any longer read. The Antikythera mechanism thus becomes more than a wonder. It is a cautionary tale written in bronze. It demonstrates that technological progress is not a straight, inevitable line upward. It is a branching path where entire avenues of expertise can be overgrown and lost when the conditions that nurtured them, peace, patronage, curiosity, and the free flow of ideas, fade away. The device is a stark reminder of the fragility of human knowledge, a single, intricate echo from a road not taken, asking us what marvels of our own age might one day seem equally impossible to those who come after. Theories on parchment are one thing, but bronze must turn. To truly understand the Antikythera mechanism, you have to build it. Across the globe, a dedicated community of historians, engineers, and master craftspeople have taken on this ultimate challenge, to reconstruct the device from the ground up, using only the clues left in the fragments and the principles of ancient craftsmanship. Their goal is not just to create a replica, but to reverse engineer the mind of the original maker, proving that the proposed gear trains not only make sense on paper, but can actually function as a harmonious physical machine. Each new model, whether digital or painstakingly handcrafted, is a profound act of historical dialogue, a conversation across 2 millennia conducted in gear, teeth, and brass. Among the most influential of these modern reconstructions is the physical model built by Michael Wright, former curator of mechanical engineering at London's Science Museum. His journey began in the 1980s, and his approach was deeply hands-on. Wright meticulously studied the original fragments and the early radiographic images, but he also immersed himself in the practical realities of ancient metalwork. He sourced period-appropriate materials, using wrought iron for axles and cast bronze for gears, and he employed tools and techniques that would have been available to a Hellenistic craftsman. His working model, completed after decades of work, was the first to successfully incorporate all the known functions, including the mesmerizing epicyclic gearing for the planets. Turning the crank on Wright's model is a revelation. You feel the smooth, slightly heavy engagement of the gears. You watch the pointers glide and wobble with a quiet, mechanical grace, and for a moment, the 2,000-year gap collapses. You are operating the ancient computer as its creator intended. Wright's model did more than prove a concept. It demonstrated the breathtaking tactile elegance of the original design, a quality no digital simulation can fully convey. Another landmark effort came from a collaborative team in Greece, led by researchers at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. Their reconstruction, unveiled in 2006, was built directly from the high-resolution data produced by the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project's advanced scanning techniques. This model focused on the absolute accuracy of the gear layouts as revealed by the tomography, creating a stunningly precise physical manifestation of the digital ghost. The Aristotle University team tackled one of the mechanism's greatest puzzles, the front display. Their solution involved a complex, compact assembly of over 30 interlocking gears mounted on a series of concentric, rotating rings. Building this tiny, layered universe presented immense challenges in miniaturization and alignment, where a single gear mounted a fraction of a millimeter off-center would jam the entire cosmic simulation. Successfully solving these spatial puzzles provided tangible proof that the ancient design was not just theoretically sound, but ingeniously packaged, a masterpiece of mechanical economy. The challenges faced by every reconstructor go far beyond mere assembly. They must become detectives, filling in the blanks left by the ravages of time and sea. The fragments preserve perhaps 1/3 of the original device. For the rest, builders must make informed guesses based on the surviving gear ratios, the astronomical knowledge of the period, and the strict logic of mechanical engineering. How many teeth were on a missing gear that drove the Venus pointer? What was the exact arrangement of the lost planetary display? Each decision is a hypothesis tested in metal. Furthermore, sourcing materials that behave like ancient bronze and mastering techniques like lost wax casting and hand filing gear teeth to a perfect mesh requires a blend of scholarly patience and artisan's intuition. It is a slow, iterative process of build, test, and refine, often revealing subtle problems. A friction point here, an ambiguous inscription there, that force a rethinking of the entire assembly. These are not failures but discoveries. Each mechanical hiccup in a modern workshop likely mirrors a challenge the original maker also had to overcome, offering a humbling kinship with that long-ago artisan. Every successful reconstruction, whether on a screen or on a workbench, serves a dual purpose. First, it acts as the ultimate proof of concept. A theoretical gear train in an academic paper can be debated, but a physical model that you can hold, that turns smoothly and accurately predicts an eclipse cycle when you crank it, is irrefutable evidence. It silences lingering doubts by making the ancient genius undeniably operational. Second, and perhaps more importantly, each model deepens our appreciation for the original. We move from abstract admiration to a visceral understanding of the difficulty. We feel the precision required, we see the clever solutions to spatial problems, and we grasp the sheer audacity of attempting to miniaturize the cosmos. These modern reconstructions are more than replicas, they are bridges. They transform the Antikythera mechanism from a mysterious artifact behind glass into a living testament to human ingenuity, allowing us to reach across time and touch the turning gears of a forgotten world. The story of the Antikythera mechanism is not just one of ancient genius but of modern rediscovery. For decades after its initial study, it remained a fascinating but obscure footnote, known mainly to specialists in the history of science. Its journey from academic journals to the global stage is a testament to the power of new technology to tell an old story in a compelling way. The breakthrough came with the advanced imaging scans of the early 2000s. Those crisp, three-dimensional models and the readable inscriptions provided something crucial for public imagination: clarity. Suddenly, the ghostly gears were not just shadows on an X-ray, they were intricate, tangible components of a working machine. This visual evidence became the rocket fuel for science communication. Major documentary series from networks like the BBC and Nova featured the device, using computer animations to bring its turning dials to life for millions of viewers. Museums around the world, from Athens to New York, created stunning interactive replicas, allowing people to turn a crank and watch the ancient cosmos move. It even inspired fictional works, appearing in novels and television shows as the ultimate symbol of mysterious Chinese letter technology. This widespread exposure did more than inform, it transformed. The mechanism single-handedly shattered a popular but simplistic view of the ancient world as a place of philosophical thought and simple mechanics, devoid of complex technology. It became the definitive proof that ancient civilizations could achieve staggering technical sophistication, a concrete answer to speculative myths about lost advanced knowledge. In the public mind, it evolved from a curiosity into an icon, a physical emblem for a thrilling idea. That history might still hold forgotten marvels, waiting in the silt or the sand for their story to be told again. Perhaps its most profound cultural impact, however, is as a banner for a new kind of exploration. The mechanism's secrets were not unlocked by archaeologists alone, nor by astronomers or mechanical engineers working in isolation. It required a fusion of all these disciplines, a collaboration where gear tooth counts informed astronomical models, and ancient Greek inscriptions guided mechanical reconstructions. It stands today as a powerful symbol for interdisciplinary research, demonstrating that the biggest puzzles of our past are solved not in separate silos of expertise, but in the shared space where different ways of knowing converge. The device challenges us to look at history with integrated eyes, reminding us that the story of human ingenuity is written not just in texts or tools, but in the beautiful, complex dialogue between them. Even with our most advanced scans, the mechanism guards its final secrets in the silent spaces between its surviving gears. The consensus on its core functions is strong, but at the edges of that certainty, a vibrant arena of scholarly debate thrives, driven by the very gaps the sea left behind. These unresolved questions are not signs of failure, but engines of discovery, pushing researchers to look closer, think deeper, and imagine more boldly. One of the most heated debates swirls around the planetary display. The inscriptions confirm planets were part of the model, and the surviving fragment D strongly suggests an epicyclic system. But the exact gear trains for all 5 wanderers remain a magnificent puzzle. How many gears were lost? How were they arranged in that cramped wooden frame? Competing theoretical models, each mathematically valid, propose different configurations. One model might use a beautifully simple, symmetrical layout, while another opts for a more complex but historically plausible design. Each reconstruction is a hypothesis cast in brass, and until a new fragment is found with a telltale gear still attached, the debate is a healthy, productive stalemate that refines our understanding of ancient engineering possibilities. Another tantalizing mystery is locked in the device's calendar. To set the machine, an ancient user would have needed to align all its dials to a specific starting point, a base date from which all future calculations would flow. Researchers have scoured the inscriptions for this anchor, this year 0. Several candidates exist with dates in the 2nd century before the Common Era clustering around the lifetime of the astronomer Hipparchus. Pinpointing this start date is more than academic. It would tell us the exact historical moment for which the machine's predictions were freshly calculated, potentially linking it to a specific patron, a known astronomical event, or a particular workshop's peak activity. It is a search for the device's birthday, the day its cosmic clock was first set in motion. Perhaps the most profound question is one of loneliness. Was the Antikythera mechanism a singular, unparalleled prototype, a flash of genius that burned brightly once and then vanished? Or was it simply the one that survived, a single exquisite example from a tradition of such devices? The quality of its craftsmanship suggests the latter. This level of skill implies apprenticeship, established techniques, and a workshop that likely produced other instruments, perhaps simpler astrolabes or more elaborate planetaria. The Roman author Cicero described a similar orrery brought to Rome from Syracuse, a device attributed to the legendary Archimedes himself. Could the Antikythera device be a descendant of that earlier tradition? The lack of any other surviving geared mechanisms from antiquity is haunting, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Every new scan of the fragments, every fresh look at the corrosion patterns, is conducted with the hope of finding a clue, a gear-tooth ratio that matches a description in a long-ignored text, an inscription that names a known craftsman, or a manufacturing mark that links it to other artifacts. These debates are the lifeblood of the research. They ensure the mechanism is not a closed book, but an open conversation, a dialogue across millennia where each new generation of scholars brings new tools and new questions to the table. The controversies remind us that history, especially technological history, is rarely a settled narrative. It is a story we continue to piece together, one delicate, corroded gear at a time. The true magic of this device lies in understanding its gears as a form of ancient programming. We can think of the Antikythera mechanism not merely as a collection of moving parts, but as a physical computer, its bronze components forming the hardware, while the precise arrangement of those gears constitutes the software. Every tooth, every turn, every ratio was a line of code written in metal, executing complex astronomical algorithms long before the word algorithm even existed. The input was a simple turn of the hand crank, representing the passage of time. The output was the silent, elegant dance of pointers across dials, predicting the positions of celestial bodies with uncanny accuracy. This was computation in its most tangible form, a calculation made kinetic. The genius was in the translation. The builders took two vast streams of knowledge and fused them into a single, mechanical symphony. From the Babylonians, they inherited centuries of meticulous numerical data, precise arithmetical models for the cycles of the moon and planets, painstakingly recorded on clay tablets. From the Greeks, they adopted the powerful geometric theories of thinkers like Hipparchus and Apollonius, models that explained why the heavens moved as they did. The mechanism's gear trains are the physical embodiment of this fusion. A specific gear with 223 teeth doesn't just turn, it literally counts out the Saros eclipse cycle, a number derived from Babylonian observation. The elegant pin and slot assembly that makes the moon pointer speed up and slow down is a direct mechanical translation of Hipparchus' geometric model for the lunar anomaly. Each gear ratio is a mathematical constant cast in bronze. Each interlocking train is a step in a calculation. When you turn the crank, you were not just moving metal, you were running a program that had been observing the sky for centuries. You were executing an algorithm that multiplied, divided, and added celestial motions through the meshing of precisely cut teeth. The result was a prediction that emerged not from a scholar's laborious scroll work, but from the inevitable physical logic of the machine itself. This perspective transforms our view of the artifact completely. It ceases to be a mysterious clock and becomes a calculator of profound elegance. Its memory was stored in the fixed diameters of its gears. Its processing power was the irreversible engagement of one wheel with another. Its user interface was a series of beautifully labeled dials. In a world without silicon chips or electric circuits, this was the pinnacle of information technology, a computer that computed not with electrons, but with the turning of the heavens themselves, miniaturized into a box you could hold in your hand. This single device rewrites the technological biography of an entire era. For generations, the narrative of ancient science was one of brilliant thought divorced from practical application. We were taught to picture Greek philosophers in quiet contemplation, theorizing about perfect circles in the heavens while their world remained one of simple levers, pulleys, and water clocks. The Antikythera mechanism shatters that comforting separation. Its very existence is a smoking gun, proving that the most advanced theoretical astronomy of the age was not confined to papyrus scrolls in the Library of Alexandria. It was actively translated into intricate machinery by master artisans in buzzing workshops. This suggests a Hellenistic world far more experimentally vibrant and technically capable than our history books often portray. Think of it not as an anomaly but as a signal. If a device of this complexity was created, used, and even shipped as luxury cargo, then the knowledge and skill to make it must have been established. It implies a supporting ecosystem. Where there is one masterpiece, there are almost certainly simpler prototypes that came before, and perhaps even more ambitious models that were planned. This opens a thrilling and unsettling possibility. What else did they build? Could there have been sophisticated geared devices for navigation, calculating longitude or compensating for a ship's drift under the stars? Might architects and engineers have used complex calculators for surveying land or designing monumental structures with precise astronomical alignments? Even the realm of spectacle and entertainment is plausible. Ancient texts describe automated theaters and moving statues in the courts of kings, wonders often dismissed as poetic exaggeration. The mechanism gives those stories a new credibility. It proves the Greeks had not just the imagination for such automata, but the precise mechanical engineering to potentially bring them to life. This forces a profound shift in perspective. The ancient thinkers we admire were not merely theorists, they were, in many cases, tinkerers and engineers. Archimedes was not just a mathematician who discovered principles of buoyancy in a bath. He was a military engineer who built legendary war machines to defend Syracuse. The legacy of his celestial sphere, described by Cicero, now seems less like a myth and more like a lost precursor to the device from Antikythera. The mechanism stands as the best physical evidence we have for a road not taken, a path where the marriage of abstract geometry and precision metalworking could have led to a much earlier mechanical age. Its silent, corroded gears ask us to listen for the echoes of other lost machines, to see the ancient world not as a static museum of ideas, but as a dynamic, inventive, and technologically ambitious civilization whose full capabilities we are only beginning to comprehend. The Antikythera mechanism forces us to listen for echoes in other ancient shadows. It is not the only artifact that whispers OF Chinese letter knowledge seemingly out of place in the timeline we have constructed. Two other famous enigmas, one a quiet clay pot and the other a weapon of terrifying legend, suggest this single computer may have been part of a broader, if sporadic, landscape of ancient innovation. The first is often called the Baghdad Battery. Discovered in the 1930s near the ancient city of Ctesiphon, It consists of a simple terracotta jar about the size of a man's fist, sealed with an asphalt stopper. Through this stopper, an iron rod was suspended inside the jar, surrounded by a copper cylinder. If the jar were filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, it would form a basic electrochemical cell, capable of producing a small but measurable electric charge. The interpretation is hotly debated. Many archaeologists believe it was more likely a storage vessel for sacred scrolls, with the metal components simply acting as seals. Yet the simple fact that it could function as a battery, even if that was not its intended purpose, sparks a compelling question. Did ancient artisans, perhaps while gilding silver with gold using a process called electroplating, stumble upon the principles of galvanic electricity without fully understanding the science behind the effect? Whether a battery or not, the object symbolizes a tantalizing possibility, a glimpse of a physical phenomenon that was within reach of ancient experimenters, even if it never sparked a wider electrical revolution. The second mystery is not a silent artifact but a roaring legend: Greek fire. This was the secret weapon of the Byzantine Empire, a liquid flame that could burn on water and was famously deployed through pressurized siphons to devastate enemy fleets. Its exact composition was a state secret so closely guarded that it was lost to history. Modern theories suggest it was a napalm-like mixture of crude petroleum, quicklime, and perhaps other chemicals that ignited upon contact with water. The key here is not just the flammable recipe, but the advanced delivery system, the pressurized nozzles and pumps that allowed it to be projected like a modern flamethrower. This represents a high point in ancient chemical engineering and military technology, a peak of applied science that provided a decisive advantage for centuries before the knowledge itself faded away. What links these three items, the bronze computer, the clay jar, and the liquid fire, is their isolation. Each appears as a brilliant flare in the historical record, not part of a sustained, growing bonfire of progress. The Antikythera mechanism was not followed by generations of ever more complex geared computers. Greek fire did not lead to a broader chemical industry. The possible battery did not illuminate cities. They were pockets of advanced applied science, often arising from urgent needs like warfare, navigation, or understanding divine omens, and sustained by unique conditions like royal patronage or a specific craftsman's guild. When those conditions changed, when a workshop was destroyed, a library burned, or a master artisan died without an apprentice, the knowledge could evaporate, leaving behind only the mysterious object or the terrifying legend. This pattern reveals a fundamental truth about the path of innovation. It is not a straight, inevitable march forward. It is a fragmented, non-linear journey, full of brilliant dead ends and forgotten peaks. Our own modern technological civilization, with its continuous, accelerating progression, is the historical exception, not the rule. The real wonder, then, is not that these ancient marvels were lost, but that they were conceived and built at all, standing as quiet monuments to the timeless human drive to solve, to build, and to understand the world, no matter how temporary the triumph might be. Beyond its historical mystery, the mechanism now sparks a different kind of ignition in the minds of students. In classrooms and museums around the world, this ancient artifact has become a gateway, transforming abstract STEM concepts into a tangible and thrilling story. Teachers use its image to launch a simple, powerful question: how would you build a computer without electricity? That single query opens a universe of practical learning. Students are tasked with designing their own basic gear trains using cardboard or laser-cut plastic, physically discovering how ratios work, how one turn of a large gear can produce a specific, different turn in a smaller one. They are not just memorizing formulas, they are reverse engineering thought processes 2,000 years old. The device makes the history of science feel immediate and hands-on, a chain of problem-solving that links a Greek workshop to a modern classroom. It demonstrates that engineering is not just about the future, but about creatively applying logic with the materials you have, whether that material is bronze or balsa wood. The story of its discovery and decoding is itself a masterclass in scientific method. It is a multi-generational detective story where clues were hidden in corrosion, where hypotheses were tested with X-rays and three-dimensional models, and where the final answer was not delivered by one genius but by a global team of historians, astronomers, and engineers. This narrative powerfully shows young people that science is rarely a eureka, a moment in a lonely lab. It is a collaborative, messy, and persistent pursuit, a puzzle where the pieces are scattered across disciplines and centuries. For a student wondering if they belong in science, the mechanism's tale says you can contribute as a linguist deciphering inscriptions, as a programmer building a digital simulation, or as a maker crafting a physical replica. It validates diverse paths into discovery. Museums leverage this power brilliantly. Interactive exhibits don't just display a replica behind glass. They invite visitors to turn a crank and watch the planets move, creating a direct personal connection to ancient ingenuity. This visceral experience fosters a profound awe, the kind that precedes curiosity. It challenges the unspoken assumption that older means simpler, replacing it with a more exciting truth. Human cleverness has deep and surprising roots. By revealing a technological peak that was lost and found, the mechanism does something subtle but vital. It implicitly encourages a new generation not just to learn what is known, but to question what might be missing. It redraws the map of the possible, suggesting that other wonders might still lie undiscovered, waiting for their own moment of rediscovery. In this way, the Antikythera mechanism is no longer just a relic. It is a mentor. It teaches mechanics through its gears, astronomy through its dials, history through its shipwreck, and perseverance through its century-long decoding. It stands as a timeless reminder that the drive to understand the universe and build models of its workings is a fundamental human trait, one that every new mind can pick up and carry forward. The ancient bronze gears now spin in a realm of pure light. While physical reconstructions prove the mechanism could be built, the digital age has given it a second life as an interactive idea. Sophisticated software simulations and virtual models now exist, allowing anyone with a smartphone or computer to reach across millennia and operate this ancient computer for themselves. These are not simple animations, but fully functional, three-dimensional recreations built from the precise scan data of the fragments. You can zoom in to see the individual teeth on a gear with 223 teeth. Rotate the entire assembly to peer inside its layered structure, and with a click or a swipe, turn the input crank. As you do, you watch the pointers glide across the zodiac, the moon's indicator subtly speeding up and slowing down thanks to that brilliant pin and slot mechanism, and the spiral dials on the back advance their eclipse predictions. This digital democratization is profound. Where once only a scholar in Athens or a wealthy Roman patron could interact with such a device, now its cosmic calculations are available to a curious student in a classroom halfway around the world. These apps and online models remove all barriers, transforming the artifact from a distant mystery into a hands-on learning tool that you can explore at your own pace, taking apart its components virtually without ever risking damage to the irreplaceable original. Beyond public education, these virtual models have become indispensable laboratories for researchers. Testing a new theory about the lost planetary gear trains no longer requires months of painstaking metalwork. A scientist can now build a digital gear, assign it a specific number of teeth and a proposed position within the three-dimensional frame, and run the simulation. Does the gear train move smoothly, or does it jam? Does the resulting motion of the Venus pointer match the astronomical data from the period? Digital tools allow for rapid iteration. testing hundreds of theoretical configurations in the time it would take to craft a single physical prototype. This virtual tinkering space has accelerated the debate and refinement of our understanding, turning speculation into testable digital hypotheses. Furthermore, these models act as a permanent, perfect record. The original fragments continue to corrode at a microscopic level despite conservation efforts. The high-resolution scans and the simulations built from them are a form of digital preservation, capturing every crack, every inscription, and every gear relationship in exquisite, immutable detail. They ensure that even if the physical bronze were to somehow degrade further, the complete blueprint of its genius is saved for all future generations to study, admire, and learn from. The digital Antikythera is more than a copy, it is an immortal echo. It allows the device to fulfill its original purpose as a dynamic teacher and a wonder of simulation, no longer confined by the fragility of bronze or the passage of time, but living on as a shared node in humanity's endless network of curiosity. The silent decay of 2 millennia did not stop when the fragments left the sea. In a quiet, climate-controlled room at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, a different kind of race began, one measured not in astronomical cycles but in the slow, relentless chemistry of corrosion. Here, the delicate pieces of the Antikythera mechanism are not just displayed, they are perpetually defended. The greatest enemy is a condition known as bronze disease, an active and contagious form of corrosion that can turn solid metal into a soft, powdery green dust. It starts when chlorides from the seawater become trapped within the bronze, and in the presence of moisture and oxygen, they trigger a chemical reaction that literally eats the artifact from the inside out. A single spot of this pale green powder can spread, threatening to reduce a gear that survived 2,000 years on the seabed to nothing in a matter of decades. Conservation is a constant vigil against this process. Specialists meticulously monitor the fragments in their sealed cases, where humidity is kept at a precise, low level to starve the chemical reaction of the moisture it needs to advance. It is a high-stakes balancing act, preserving the fragile equilibrium between the object and the environment. Every decision carries immense weight. One of the most profound ethical questions facing the conservators is how much to intervene. The heavy, stone-like crust that envelops the fragments is not just damage, it is also a protective shell and a historical record. It holds the exact shape of the wooden frame that long ago dissolved, and it has preserved the positions of tiny components in three-dimensional space. Aggressively cleaning it away might reveal more inscriptions or gear details, but it could also collapse the entire structure, losing forever the spatial relationships that were so crucial to understanding the device's assembly. So, the approach is one of minimal, reversible intervention. Modern synthetic resins are used to consolidate fragile areas, holding crumbling edges together without altering the original material. Custom-made cradles and supports, often 3D printed to match the exact contours of a fragment, hold them securely for display without applying stress. These invisible supports are a testament to modern technology in service of ancient craft, allowing the pieces to be studied and admired without accelerating their decline. This painstaking work is a silent partnership across time. The conservators are not just preserving metal, they are preserving a conversation. Every flake of corrosion they stabilize, every unstable fragment they secure, keeps a line of that dialogue open. They are buying time for future generations of researchers who will have tools and questions we cannot yet imagine, ensuring that this unparalleled window into ancient genius remains clear, not just for us, but for the curious minds of centuries to come. The ability to predict an eclipse decades into the future is more than a technical feat. It is a philosophical statement cast in bronze. In a world where celestial events were often seen as direct messages from the gods, sudden and terrifying, this machine offered a different vision. It suggested the heavens were not a realm of capricious divine whims, but a grand, predictable system. By turning a handle, a user could witness a future cosmic alignment click into place with mechanical certainty. This must have been a deeply powerful and perhaps unsettling experience. It materialized the ancient Greek concept of cosmos, not just the universe, but the very idea of an ordered, harmonious, and beautiful system underlying apparent chaos. Here was tangible proof that the sun, moon, and stars moved according to rules that human reason could not only discover but physically replicate. The mechanism was a working argument for a rational universe. This vision of a clockwork cosmos inevitably brushes against timeless human questions of fate and freedom. If the stars move in predetermined paths, and their most dramatic events can be foretold by a box of gears, what does that imply for the course of human lives? In the ancient mindset, where astrology was a serious science linking celestial patterns to earthly events, the device's predictions could easily be interpreted as a map of destiny. It provided the data for a more precise fatalism, potentially reinforcing the belief that individual paths were written in the stars. Yet there is another way to see it. By demystifying the heavens, by showing that eclipses were not sudden divine anger but the result of a long, calculable cycle, the mechanism might also have created a space for human agency. If the gods communicated through a rational, mechanical language, then perhaps understanding that language was the key to navigating one's path wisely, not merely submitting to it. The machine did not necessarily eliminate the divine, but it suggested the divine operated by principles that could be learned. This reframed the relationship between humanity and the cosmos from one of fearful supplication to one of potential mastery through knowledge. The intellectual thread spun by this ancient device would stretch far beyond its own time. The idea that the universe operates by consistent mathematical laws, an idea given physical form in those tiny gears, would vanish from common knowledge for over a millennium, only to re-emerge with stunning force during the scientific revolution. When thinkers like Galileo and Newton looked at the heavens, they saw not a mystery but a magnificent machine. Newton's clockwork universe, governed by universal laws of motion and gravity, is the direct philosophical descendant of the principle embodied in the Antikythera mechanism. The Greeks had the concept and even built a model of it, but it took a new age to develop the full mathematical framework and the widespread belief that such laws applied everywhere. The mechanism stands as a poignant precursor, a whisper from antiquity that the greatest mysteries might be solvable puzzles after all. It reminds us that the desire to see the universe as an ordered, comprehensible whole is not a modern invention, but a very human longing that has found expression in both philosophy and machinery across the ages. In its quiet turning gears, we hear an early, hopeful answer to our deepest question about reality. Is it chaos, or is it a kind of music we can learn to play? The sea kept its secret for 2,000 years, so what else might it be hiding? This single, miraculous survival forces us to confront a tantalizing possibility. The Antikythera mechanism cannot have been the only one of its kind. The craftsmanship is too refined, the underlying knowledge too systematic. It feels like a product, not a prototype, so the hunt is on, a quiet, persistent quest across archaeology and history to find evidence of its siblings, to prove it was part of a forgotten technological tradition. Scholars scour ancient texts with new eyes. Cicero's description of a bronze sphere built by Archimedes that replicated the motions of the heavens is no longer read as mere legend, but as a plausible report of a similar, perhaps even grander, device. Other writers mention intricate models and automata in royal courts, wondrous displays that moved with a life of their own. These were not just poetic fantasies, they were likely the peak expressions of the same artisanal knowledge that built our mechanism, the high-status showpieces that inspired smaller, portable versions for practical use. The challenge is that bronze is a recycler's dream. When such devices broke or fell out of fashion, they were almost certainly melted down, their gears returned to the furnace to become coins, weapons, or statues. The only examples that could survive are precisely those that met the same fate as our device, lost in shipwrecks or sealed in tombs, hidden from the scrap merchant's hammer. This shifts the search to the seafloor. Archaeologists now examine every nondescript lump of corroded bronze from a classical wreck with heightened suspicion. What was once catalogued as a metal concretion or unidentifiable scrap might, under advanced imaging, reveal the faint ghost of a gear tooth or the precise curve of an engraved scale. The Antikythera wreck itself may still hold answers. The original salvage in 1900 was perilous and rushed, recovering only a fraction of the site. Modern, systematic excavations of the remaining debris field could yet uncover another fragment, a crucial gear that clarifies the planetary display, or even the shattered remains of a second device from the same cargo. Beyond that single cove, every newly discovered ancient shipwreck carries this quiet hope. Each is a time capsule, and within the sediment near any cluster of luxury goods, there might lie another corroded box waiting to tell us its story. The search is also a shift in mindset. It requires believing that the ancient world was capable of such things on a scale beyond a single fluke. It means looking at the archaeological record not for what is there, but for the empty spaces where such complex objects should logically be, and asking why they are missing. This is the mechanism's ultimate challenge to history. It asks us to imagine a Hellenistic world where workshops in Rhodes, Alexandria, or Syracuse hummed with activity, where masters passed the secrets of precision gearing to apprentices, and where the wealthy displayed working models of the cosmos as the ultimate symbol of enlightenment and power. Finding even one more fragment, one more geared device, would transform the Antikythera mechanism from a stunning anomaly into a representative of a lost class of technology. It would rewrite the narrative from a story about one incredible object to a story about an entire forgotten dimension of ancient innovation. Until then, it remains a solitary beacon, its very existence a promise that other marvels may still lie in the deep, silent and encrusted, waiting for their turn to speak. The Antikythera mechanism stands not as a relic of a forgotten past, but as a brilliant beacon illuminating the sophisticated heights ancient science could reach. It is a quiet argument against a kind of chronological arrogance, the assumption that our modern age holds a monopoly on genius. This device, with its intricate gears and celestial predictions, proves that the drive to model the universe, to build a working simulation of reality, is a timeless human impulse. It whispers that profound innovation can flare into existence, be cherished, and then slip beneath the waves of history, waiting for a future generation to recognize it once more. This is perhaps its most humbling lesson, the stark reminder of knowledge's fragility. A workshop plundered, a library damaged, a master craftsperson without an apprentice, any of these small fractures could sever a chain of understanding that took centuries to forge. The mechanism embodies that loss, but also the miraculous chance of recovery. It asks us to look at the blank spaces in our historical timelines not as empty periods, but as chapters where other marvels may have existed, leaving no trace behind. Yet, for all its caution about what can be lost, the device is ultimately an inspiring testament to humanity's enduring curiosity. It is a physical manifesto of our desire to comprehend the cosmos, to find order in the stars, and to hold a piece of that order in our hands. From the Babylonian astronomers who recorded the cycles, to the Greek geometers who devised the models, to the unknown artisan who translated it all into turning bronze, this object represents a collaborative triumph of the human mind across cultures and centuries. As we continue to decode its final secrets with each new scan and reconstruction, let this ancient computer be a call to our own curiosity. It urges us to look at history not as a settled story, but as a living puzzle, full of surprises that challenge the narratives we think we know. It encourages us to never underestimate the ingenuity of those who walked this earth long before us, for they too looked up at the night sky with wonder, and with the tools they had, they built a universe in a box. If you found this journey through time as fascinating as I did, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What other historical mysteries do you think might hide a similar level of forgotten sophistication? For more explorations into the hidden corners of our past, be sure to subscribe.